Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank, our country, your bank, and Smart, bringing people together.
Live from the GBM studios in Belize City, it's Open Your Eyes. Start your morning right with your hosts, April Martinez and Desani Caetano.
Good morning and welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm April Martinez.
And I am Desani Caetano. Good morning.
Good morning, Belize. Good morning, Sani. It's
Good
Monday.
morning, my dear friend. It's Monday. Indeed it is. Feels like June is whizzing by so quickly.
It is.
Last week of June.
Well,
yes, it is.
It is. Wow.
Come on, April.
I am clearly trying to spend a little bit more time in June, but it is moving fast. And I think I told you that after the 6-month period, the rest of the year is just going to go by very quickly.
Well, for me, because of the fact that there's so much to do and it always feels like you're racing against time, certain things just fly past you.
That's
right?
true.
I was on my way to work this morning, and I'll just say this quickly. I'm realizing that this week school is officially over for primary schools as well,
the
right?
kiddos are going to be home.
So yes, I know that because my kids, well, my daughter is working.
Okay.
My son is on his official, holiday from school. And I envy them. They get to wake up whenever they want to, basically.
To be young and to be carefree, really.
Yes.
I always tell my younger brother to just enjoy it for as long as you possibly can. Right? But Isani, we have a jam-packed show this morning. What do we have this morning?
Yes, so our conversations this morning include a sit-down with the Minister of Transport. That's Dr. Louis Zabaneh, and he's going to be talking about the public transportation concerns that we've been facing. We're also going to be celebrating 20 years of regional climate leadership with the 5 Cs. And of course, we're going to be joined later on in the show by our friends from FCD, the Friends of Conservation and Development, as we look at new heights at the heart of the Chiquibul. And last but not least, it's the countdown to Belize's King of the Pitch. You may want to find out what that is.
Ooh, okay. But, before we get into our conversations, Isane, over the course of the weekend, if you haven't seen it on social media or heard it on the international news front, the U.S. has officially attacked Iran via missiles, right? So we have been watching this conflict brewing over the past couple of months, and the U.S. we weren't really sure if they were ever going to strike or begin or wage war against Iran, but I believe it was on Saturday evening. That is when it all went
For them,
haywire.
Sunday morning.
Sunday morning, yes. It all went haywire.
Now, this has been brewing for quite some time.
Yes.
Right? So, for the benefit of those who don't know what we're talking about, a little bit of context, right? So, Iran has been working diligently, one would say, on its nuclear capabilities. So, there are 3 nuclear sites in Iran.
Yes.
You have Fordo, you have Natanz, and you have Isfahan, right? Those are the 3 particular sites. And there was growing concern from the Israelis that these particular sites were being used, and by the way, these locations are buried deep in the mountains, right? To avoid any kind of destruction from above. I'm saying that because you're going to get to that part of it, right? But yes, so the concern was that Iran was enriching uranium to a point where they reached 60%. What does that mean? It means that they would be able to then develop a nuclear bomb, right? Or nuclear bombs. And so that was the concern from the very beginning.
Right.
And with Israeli intelligence, they were able to learn that that indeed was what the Iranians were working towards. And so in last week, they launched their first offensive, right? But here's the thing. They don't have the kinds of armaments that would be able to destroy a bunker that's about 250 feet below or into the actual bedrock of the
Right.
mountain. So enter the US. Now, in the first instance, the Trump administration gave a 2-week window for Iran to come to the table and try to figure this whole thing out. But within 2 days, the B-2 bombers flew over Iran and destroyed all 3 of these particular sites.
Yes.
What is interesting is that leading up to this, there was a conflict where Israel went into Iran, and on this particular offensive, they were able to take out at least 2 of the top military leaders within the Iranian army. And so, in the immediate wake of that, there was a conversation. I'm not sure how close you were following, but there was a conversation where there was essentially a plot to assassinate Iran's supreme leader,
Yes.
Ayatollah Khamenei, right? And so the US said, okay, we're not going that far, right?
Yeah.
We're not going that far. But fast forward back to what I was saying. So yesterday morning, Sunday for them, there was this airstrike. President Trump came on moments later and said, okay, this was a successful operation.
Via tweet, yes.
Yeah, right? Operation Midnight Hammer, it's called, where these 3 sites were essentially leveled.
Yes.
But in the wake of it, Iran has promised holy hell, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But the extent of the U.S. involvement, as far as I'm understanding, based on what I've read and what I've been following, is that they were only going as far as bombing the sites. I don't know that there will be anything
Well,
further than
we
that.
thought
However,
that.
however, President Trump was sure to say that basically any act of retaliation will be met with similar force, and it would be easier, quote unquote, for them to do that.
So I wanted to take it a little step backward, because for this didn't just occur within the last few months. Like I said, yes, there has been conflict brewing that we know of in the media and so forth. But with Israel kind of, going into Iran, trying to get this intel, trying to find a bit of leverage against Iran, didn't just suddenly come up, Isane, because we are all aware of the instability in the Middle East. And this didn't just happen between Palestine and Israel. This instability has been decades and decades of in the making and so forth.
Well, Iran is widely regarded as the bully of the Middle East, right? Strongman, so to speak.
Indeed. But it doesn't just come with, nuclear weapons and so forth. Iran is very rich in resources.
Yes.
And that's also something that for some reason is kind of being swept under the rug, because apart from all of these nuclear plants and so forth, new resources and minerals and so forth have been recovered in Iran over the past 6 months, if you will. Rich resources that can be used for military weapons, can be used for, of course, other things, smart AI technologies and so forth. So Iran holds, I think, about 10% of the world's antimony element, and somebody could fact check me on that. But that has been a newly found discovery within the past couple of months. And so it's just one of those things that, to me, it all comes back to, hey, yes, while we're stopping you from creating a nuclear world war, you also have all of these resources that, we could probably utilize to our advantage.
I don't know that I'd go that far, because I haven't heard that. It almost sounds conspiratorial from your end.
Apologies if it does, but I'm really saying that area, that entire region really is filled with resources. And we talked about retaliation from Iran's part. Just up until last night, I believe this has not been declared any kind of truth or so forth, but there were talks within certain media houses about Iran possibly cutting the oil chain through the Persian Gulf.
Okay, so now, as with everything in the Middle East, there's always a geopolitical undertone, right?
Yes.
So, if it were to do that, cut off that particular route,
Yes.
then from my understanding, China would be most affected.
Yes.
And they're doing everything to maintain their relationship, excuse me, their bilateral relationship with China.
Yes.
So all of that is what's on the table, right? But again, this is the thing, and I was thinking about it over the weekend. I said, okay, if you know that your neighbor, for instance, is doing something illegal that could very well impact you and your family or other neighbors who are innocent to what your rogue neighbor is doing, does it serve you to be preemptive in your approach to addressing the matter, or reactive when the thing don't happen?
Yeah.
Right? And so that's in a sense how I look at it, right?
Yeah.
They were able to get in there. They were able to, again, with their intelligence, understand that certain things were taking place, right? They already have the lay of the land in terms of where these sites are located and what have you. But they probably wouldn't have, like I said, the kind of armament to go in there and deal with it, so to speak. So then Big Brother comes in, right? It's, in one sense, can be argued it's all preemptive to avoid Iran reaching to that particular place where it has nuclear capabilities.
It's just a little odd to me, Sani, and I know you say my thoughts sound a little bit conspiratorial, but I think I overanalyze way too much. But in terms of after this particular strike in Iran, we haven't really been hearing a lot from the U.S. allies. And normally when these things happen, you start to hear from different countries and so forth what they think. And strangely enough,
go as far as the allies though, because there's division within the administration as to whether or not they should have carried through with that operation.
But to my point, we've not heard from necessarily the U.S. allies, but we've heard from President Putin, for example, the Russian president. We've heard from President Xi Jinping, where they're all kind of stating their sort of disappointment and disapproval of this particular missile launch. As you rightfully mentioned, China would have been greatly affected if the Persian Gulf is cut from its supply chain, and then Russia would also be affected as well. So you have two of these particular superpowered men that Trump has been trying to become very friendly with, stating their disapproval on this action.
Fair enough, right? Again, the best way I look at it is being proactive, being reactive, right? I don't know that back in the past, if they had this kind of an approach when North Korea was also preparing itself with nuclear capabilities. So, but here's an opportunity where they've been looking at what's happening in Iran since 2004 with this particular development at Fordo and the other sites that I mentioned earlier. Because when you look at the satellite imagery, it shows you the development of these particular locations over a period of time, right? And so if concerns were afoot from then, this is what, 21 years later, right? And so, again, perhaps they figure it's the appropriate time to stop Iran in its tracks before it reaches to that point. Now, you raised a very interesting thing earlier, and I said it's theoretical. But I don't know that they would be doing this to be able to get in and exploit whatever resources, natural resources, would have been discovered in Iran over the past several months, as you've mentioned.
I also know, and I don't want to digress too far or divert too far, sorry, from the topic. But one of Israel's biggest concerns with Iran was their perhaps retaliation or coming in defense of Palestine during their own buckle, right?
Well, I wouldn't say, hold on 1 second. I wouldn't say retaliation.
Okay.
Right? It has been put forward that Iran was chiefly behind arming and training the Hamas, right?
Yes.
That's as far as they were saying. Okay, you were the ones who funded them, who trained them,
Who helped them,
and who
basically.
essentially facilitated
Yeah.
the October 2023 attack.
Yes.
Right? And so I think from that perspective, I wouldn't say it's retaliatory. It's simply, okay, if you were able to do that and you're threatening all of these other countries around you, then what wouldn't you do?
Yeah. So it's more like would you say then, because I am still trying to grapple with the fact that the U.S. thought that it was necessary to go in 2 days after having this conversation. Essentially, essentially after saying, okay, we'll give you guys 2 weeks to come forth.
I'm glad you raised that
I'm
point.
really trying to understand what happened between that announcement and then 2 days later there was a button push.
This may be a wild analogy, right?
Okay.
But if my landlord give me 2 weeks to get out and kick me out in 2 days,
No,
do the math on it, right?
you know what? That is the
Girl,
perfect
man,
way
to
to
make it make sense,
It
right?
doesn't make any sense, and it really. I think my concern for this wasn't that it happened 2 days after. It was when President Trump said, "You don't know what I'm going to do." That was his line. You don't know what I am going to do, and then a day later, bam, today.
Yeah.
It really does create a little bit of uncertainty, but also creates distrust amongst allies when it comes to the United States. Because if you aren't going to say 2 weeks and then in 2 days you decide to just change your mind, what does that say about your diplomacy?
You know who's lauding this effort as a great success? Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Of course. He came out very big with a big
Right?
press briefing and everything. He was extremely happy about that.
Well, in terms of flexing military might, the fact that the United States was able to fly these B-2 bombers, these stealth bombers over Iran and deliver this payload of missiles and destroy these 3 targets. And the fact that they're saying, look, only the United States had that kind of weaponry to go in there and do something like that. Because when you're talking about bunker busting missiles,
Yeah.
the rest of the world doesn't have that kind of technology to be able to go in there and destroy these particular targets. Again, going back to the fact that these particular sites are embedded deep into the mountains in Iran.
You have to have the
And
technology to detect them and everything.
it was designed
Yes.
to do so to avoid, as I mentioned earlier, aerial attacks. But yes.
I'm very curious to see. The UN had an emergency meeting after that and so forth. But I am very curious to see how the rest of the world is going to the rest of the world leaders, are going to react with this. And I say that, Isana, because the last time we had a world war, a lot of leaders were in agreement that this was quote unquote necessary to defuse, right? When Adolf Hitler marched into Poland, that was when the rest of the world said, no, we're not going to allow this to happen. But for this particular moment in history, we're not hearing anything from the rest of the world leaders.
Because I don't believe it's going to escalate to that point.
I honestly, I am that person that we're watching here
I'm not a
from
theorist,
our border,
so forgive me.
from this enclosed border here. But it is something that we have to keep a close eye on.
Yeah.
You were talking about it has created rift within their own administration, rightfully so. I believe one of the commentaries from one of the Republican governors stated that I didn't sign up for this. We signed up for America first. What is happening now is not part of what we had agreed on.
But here's the irony, right? And I'll leave it at this, right?
Okay.
You can't bomb me out and invade me and talk about peace. don't know.
And then say if I'm going to retaliate, I will be received with the same retaliation tenfold.
Man.
It doesn't create that space for peace talks. But
You
I'm
come in
curious
week,
to
holy
see.
hell, and I chop up my dog there and so on and so forth. They say, hey, make us sit down and talk about peace now. I don't know.
Listen, they might not retaliate in the same way, but if they do cut off that Persian Gulf supply chain, Isani, I think we're all in trouble. And
Well,
I'm going to leave it
let's
at
see where the
that.
next few weeks go, right?
Next few days, next few hours. Okay. But we do have a Facebook online poll happening. So head on over to Open Your Eyes BZ to check that out. And our Facebook poll reads as such. Do you think that the U.S. military action against Iran makes Americans safer or puts them at greater risk? So that's what the online poll reads. Do you believe that U.S. military action against Iran makes Americans safer or puts them at greater risk? The options that you have are safer, greater risk, no difference, or unsure. So you have those options, as well as you can create your comments in the comment section below and let us know if you think anything else further on this topic. But Isane, we do gotta move on. We have a jam-packed show, and so we are going to head on to the weather, an eye on the weather for this morning.
And with your weather this morning, I am your ad hoc forecaster, Isana Cayetano. Today's forecast looks as such. Cloudy spells with a few showers or isolated thunderstorms lingering mostly over northern and central areas on Tuesday morning. Then over the south on Tuesday night. Otherwise, shower activities will be isolated. Today's temperatures along the coast is 88 degrees Fahrenheit, 78 degrees Fahrenheit inland, 78 degrees Fahrenheit. Inland is 94 degrees Fahrenheit, 74 degrees Fahrenheit. The hills is 78 degrees Fahrenheit and 68 degrees Fahrenheit. The extended forecast for Tuesday, we're looking at 87 degrees along the coast, 94 inland. For Wednesday, it's 84 degrees along the coast and 89 degrees inland. For Thursday, it's 84, 86 inland. And of course, for Friday, it's 86 along the coast and 91 degrees inland. The astronomical forecast, the sun rises at 5:18, it sets at 6:30 p.m. The moon rises at 12:51 a.m. and will set at 5 p.m. And of course, for your marine conditions, the sea state will be light chop to choppy winds east to southeast at 10 to 20 knots. And of course, the tides today's high is at 7:21 a.m. The low is at 3:08 p.m. The highs this afternoon, well, the highs are also going to be at 9:34 p.m. And tomorrow, the low tide will be at 1:55 a.m. All right. So that does it for your forecast this morning. April, take it away.
All right, Isani, thank you so much for that weather update. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Minister Louis Zabaneh addresses public transportation concerns. We'll be right back.
My name is Christian Palma. I'm the owner of CRK Services, and I've been operating this business for 7 years in Big Falls, Toledo District. I use the Belize Bank online services because it's quite fast, reliable, and easy. Before I started to use the Belize Bank online services, I had to make a lot of trips into town, which cost me a lot, especially fuel. So the fact that I have to use my credit card every day, I can do an online instant payment and make my life easy. My customers can do payments towards me and it reaches in instant. It's fast, it's convenient for my business. I don't have to be up and down. I can do it anywhere I want. I would recommend you using the Belize Bank online services because for you, it will save you a lot of time.
Electricity powers our lives, but it must be handled safely and correctly. That is why it is not only important, but essential to be a licensed wireman. Being licensed means you are trained, tested, and trusted to do the job according to acceptable industry standards. To become a licensed wireman, the first step is to take the PUC Wireman License Exam, which is the only path to becoming officially recognized to carry out electrical installation and submission of electrical design plans to the PUC. PUC's Wireman License Exam provides evidence that the applicant possesses the necessary knowledge and expertise to be licensed in a specific profession or for a specific scope of work, assures the public that the person passing the exam is qualified to practice within the scope of the license without causing electrical safety concerns to the public. All individuals who have successfully passed the exam are issued a PUC Wireman license according to their category. The PUC reminds the public, 1. Only a licensed wireman can submit your electrical design for approval. And 2. Choose a licensed wireman to ensure your electrical project is safe and up to standard.
Week after week, Scald presents exciting reports and documentaries on the most varied topics of our time. Spectacular developments and innovations, lifestyle and trends of tomorrow, mobility and tourism, health news, highlights from art and culture. Each contribution grabs the viewer with extraordinary images and stories and takes him into fascinating worlds which he experiences here exclusively and up close. We're there when companies and specialists develop super satellites for a global network in space and can look behind the scenes. Scald is a window to everything that is there or is yet to come. Fly with us through time to better understand today and tomorrow. You've always wanted that. Scald, a look into the future.
Welcome back. We have been joined in studio by Dr. Louis Zabaneh. He's the Minister of Transport and all these other responsibilities under his portfolio. Good morning, Dr. Zab.
Good morning.
Good morning. Buiti Binafe. Buenos dias.
This morning we're talking about the state of the public transportation industry. And for all intents and purposes, the state is in disarray. You have the government that is trying to, in a sense, regularize the industry, but we're seeing pushback from stakeholders who have invested their lives into these businesses that they run. Let's begin, Dr. Zab, by talking about what's taking place. There is a proposal that has been put forward for creating a one national bus company. But that proposal, while for some may be solid on paper, there are a lot more questions than answers at this point. Let's begin there.
Well, certainly, and thank you for having me. That's the reason why I've been doing media rounds, and like we had last week a session with the media and with the unions as well, to clarify, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. First of all, the objectives of this work include, first, that we must have a safe and comfortable, reliable, cost-effective bus transportation system. And we're talking on the national highways. We haven't addressed yet the village runs that also link into the highway runs, or the inter-municipality runs, if you will. That's the big objective, so that we can move away from what's there. You use a good term, disarray, in the sense that you have buses breaking down, you have racing on the road, you have breaking down that causes people to have the indirect effect on the rest of the economy because they can't get to work on time or they reach frustrated. All these things are very important, and we believe that we have to address them. But how do we go about doing it? We can take a superficial approach, which is how I characterize the request that was made by the guests that you all had, our good friends from the Belize Bus Association last time, which is to say, why don't you give us these concessions so that we can then go out there and get better buses and all that. I say superficial because the root cause, when you do a proper analysis of what's causing all of this, you will see that in fact the bus is breaking down, the fact that you don't have proper equipment on the road, the fact that you have racing, the fact that you don't have qualified drivers, etc., all come from a deeper source. And it comes from the fact that over time, too many permits have been issued out. That's the root cause. And we have to be very truthful about it. A lot of that is caused by political favoritism. One party comes in and somebody say, boy, give me one leading now, turn me on. And we don't take, it seems, the bus demand side of the equation seriously. Because a life in a bus is just as valuable as a life in a plane or in a boat. Yeah. But when we come to the airline industry, we don't have permits being given out to any person. I want to have a plane route
because
here and
by
there.
comparison, it's properly regulated.
It is properly regulated. So now it comes to being truthful and honest, as I said, not just about what is happening on the ground, but what the weaknesses of the ministry have been over time. So when we've been talking with the bus operators, we've said to them, listen, we will start out at the ministry by looking in the mirror and seeing where we have been deficient to start with. And then we will ask you to humbly do the same thing, because the focus of this entire enterprise ought to be with the commuters. And that side of the equation has not gotten the attention that it deserves. It is the people who are, they're the ones, the ridership, who matter the most. So we have said, listen, we know, first of all, that we're under-resourced. The people who come on as traffic wardens are all good people and so on, but they're not trained properly. Then you have, like with the rest of the departments and so on across the country, a high propensity for corruption, right? So that when you say your bus needs to be inspected on a particular time, and if the proper inspection is done, that bus would need to be parked. But if something is handed, the bus stays on the road. So we know the weaknesses that we have at the ministry. And that's why I've asked our CEO to focus on enforcement, to focus on training of our people. Then we've asked the operators, look at your setting, what is going on? Understand the history of how this industry has evolved, where we started out with about 5 operators, and now we are at 31 operators for a small market. That's the heart of the problem right there.
But the 31 operators for the small market still don't meet the demands of the commuter. Because while we have 31 operators, you still have bus routes that are not enough or sufficient, where persons that have to commute from the west to Belize City early in the morning, just like us here, don't have a route. Students that travel to the west also don't really have a route. So while we have an exuberant amount of operators, the organization of the routes don't meet the demands of the community.
So you hit the nail on the head, right? So what is necessary here is, and I feel allow me a little bit to speak about sustainable human development. It's a method of analysis that says, let's look at 4 areas: the economic, the social, the environmental, and the institutional. So that's a good methodology to use to find root cause problems. And when we apply that to the bus industry, we find clearly that the root cause problem is an economic one. It's the economic structure that is, if you want to use regular terms, out of whack, right? It is totally deformed for the purpose. So in this case, it is not a legal advice that you need at this point to solve the problem. It is not like the good people who will come in next who deal with the environment. It is not environmental advice that you need here. It's economic. And we have done, in my humble opinion, very poorly in terms of, across many different sectors, in terms of bringing in good economic analysis to determine, in cases where you have problems, root cause that needs to be addressed, because now you know the true cause. So, if you look at different market structures, you will see that if you go to the vegetable market, we got Market Day in Belmopan or here in Belize, you have many stalls. People go in there, they take their vegetables, and you go, and you could go from one to the next, and you, as the consumer, and you try to get the lowest price, right, and the highest quality. You could go and see it. But those vegetable stall vendors are not competing, rushing you and racing or anything, or endangering your life when you are trying to get what you need.
Yeah.
On the contrary, we see that every day. We've seen buses turning over, we've seen buses catching fire, all these things that suggest that we are in a precarious situation in terms of the well-being and the security of our people. Because we estimate that between 8 and 12,000 Belizeans use the national bus system every day, right? And that means that we have to take a very serious look, which is what we're doing, and then take the action necessary to solve the problem. So you compare that. So I'm saying you have the vegetable stall. That kind of industry, that kind of business is quite amenable to competition. It's a good business for competition like that. Many suppliers. This one is not. This one requires that you have proper scheduling. You don't have buses leaving 10 minutes apart that are from different entities that are competing. If it's from the same company, and you're correct, you might need 2 or 3 buses close by, but if they're from the same company, then you monitor them as they go. They will not be racing and trying to undermine each other. And that's what the National Consolidated Company will do. Take out that very grave and dangerous problem of racing, which is hurting us drastically. And secondly, consolidation will lead to economies of scale, which will reduce costs and which will remove the pressures to ask for increases in fares, because that is why you hear that they're asking for us to review that, because their costs are so high.
Yes.
If you have all of these small entities, when I say that I mean 2, 3, 4 buses, they have to buy their tires at retail. So if a tire is $850 each, they might get a little discount and end up paying $775. But a larger supplier, let's say Westline or James, they can buy a whole container of tires and end up paying maybe $650 per tire. So economies of scale is the second thing that the national bus company would do to make the whole thing, what we'd say, rationalize the whole sector that is out of whack right now.
Minister, while you are at the helm of this public transportation reform process, was there any consultant or was there any expert in the area that was brought in to do an overall study and a feasibility assessment of this particular plan? I ask because when we talk to some of the stakeholders, they're saying, okay, nobody consulted me to find out what my input is on this particular proposal. It seems as if though it's just being forced down my throat. And you keep hearing that from individual stakeholders who believe that there ought to be some form of public consultation or stakeholder engagement where this is concerned.
Well, let me address that in 2 ways. First, I heard your guest last time saying that the Belize bought the 31 of them, and they put out a release the week before,
Yeah.
are against the proposal. And we want to, again, make sure that the Belizean public gets accurate. I'll read off to you
Sure, go ahead.
the ones who are in support. And we were unable to get 5 others over the weekend because we made the calls. The 16 bus operators that I'm going to read off right now comprise over 65% of the market already.
Wow.
We know that there are at least another 5 who have indicated informally, and we just wanted to verify, so we didn't put their names here. Right, that would take us to 21 out of the 31. And these are some of the largest bus lines. Westline Bus Company, right? Silvas, James. James is the largest, Westline is the second largest. Then Floralia, which has been the most innovative. BEBB line, AJ's, D-Line, RDS, Cabrera, Armstrong, S&B, Paris Transport, Northern Transit, Fui Transport, U Paris Bus Line, V Paris Bus Line. 16 of them that I have listed off here. And the people, Belizeans, need to know that there are many, many operators. In fact, now the majority of them who are supporting this proposal. And then coming to the other part that you were mentioning there, you know, this is something that we've seen over time, right? That we have to keep working on in terms of getting this information out there, because if we don't, then clearly the people get the wrong impression about what is really happening.
What is the true pushback from the operators, apart from not being consulted and so forth with this particular plan? What is their fear?
Right. So we started the discussion with them at the beginning of May. We had a large meeting, when I say that, with the 31, and we shared our concerns about what's happening in the industry. We said, guys, listen, we can't continue to operate like this. It is unsafe for our consumers. The narrative out there is a narrative of an operator-led lobbying narrative. How about the commuters? So that was the gist of that. And then we said, listen, we need to understand from the lessons we learned of the Novello situation back in the early 2000s, and we need to see the benefits of consolidation. Then I met with them individually across the country. I visited each one. And then again, at the end of May, we met as a large group again. And now we are meeting again one-on-one. So there's not a lack of consultation. We have been consulting the whole time. We have had studies in the past. IDB did a study, I think back in 2015, about the industry and with some other consultants. But we are from the industry, so having that experience, myself having been growing up in the business, having my training in economics, speaking to, well, now we have 16 of them. If you were to go and speak to somebody like the owner of Westline, he would tell you his experience. His experience was that after the Novello the whole thing collapsed, because there was no legislative support. He was a part of the Belize bus cooperative, okay, and after some years, he has shared with me, he advised his colleagues that they need to become more professional. You need to hire a proper professional management team. He said that his advice went on deaf ears, so he left and he started his own bus company, and he started to implement modern management principles. So now he's the second largest bus operator in the country, having come and clearly seen and understood what it means to have economies of scale, that it's better that you have a company with 40, 50 buses rather than one with just 4 buses, because of many things you could do you could provide a better service, you could have better quality equipment, etc. Right?
Let me jump in here quickly, Dr. Zab. I think, and this is from a strictly layman's perspective, right? This perhaps is the result of granting a permit to someone who has little to no experience in public transportation, right?
Absolutely.
So that when you come to me and tell me, hey, minister, or whoever the person is in charge, I want a license for a run from Mascal to Belize City, for argument's sake, or from Sandhill to Belize City. Okay. Show me a proposal that says that what you're setting out to do is feasible.
Beneficial.
Right?
Correct.
Show me a proposal that says what you're setting out to do is a sound investment where you're not just putting any old bus on the road that is deemed not roadworthy in any other country, but you have it here in Belize, and you're going to put 30 odd people in there for you to make a buck.
Over 50 people.
Yeah, right? So you have to have certain structures in place, which includes the management plan. How are you going to run the business? How is this going to make a return? How do you ensure road safety and all of these
Absolutely.
things? I don't know that a first timer has that experience to say, I'm simply going to walk into the department and walk out with a license and start operate tomorrow.
Right. So the structure is called a public-private partnership, right? And you don't have, after elections, people coming to politicians to say, let me set up a water company, right, in a Miley place. So then I go in and I want to run my own water lines and hook up, right? Nobody entertains that, right? First of all, it would then end up being a grotesque economic model as well, structure, just like how the bus business is now, right? But we have said, we take these things lightly. Certain things, we have to take the politics out of it. The transportation system is a vital part of the development of our country, and it has to do with the safety of our commuters. Just like how we had worked hard in education when I had that privilege to speak with teachers, to consult with them. We moved along with the president then of BNTU, the managements and so on, and we sat with teachers and found out, let's look at ourselves in the mirror and let's refocus our attention not to where we had it. Ministry of Education knows everything, or the managements know everything, or the BNTU knows everything. No. It's let's focus on the students, what it is we need to do to restructure ourselves to serve the students. And that's where competency-based education came in. And we worked on that, a different way of approaching how we'll serve our customers. Same thing here. We need to shift our thinking to say that this is an existential threat that we are facing in Belize. We must focus on the welfare of the most important stakeholder here, who is the commuter. And what do we need to do? We have to make sure that we have people who are qualified to run this thing. And so, Isani, you're absolutely correct that people have come in, just get a manual because it seems simple, right? You just put a driver in there and a conductor, and you get this route and you go and you come back. But then this is the consequence of it. Similarly for the ministry. You send people, give them one transport traffic warden position, right? In my area, give them. But yet, what's the qualification of that person? What's the character? Are they able to stand up when they're out there and not be bribed or not ask for a bribe? These are things that are important. And so we must, in 2025, stop, close one eye and look the other way, like as if though these things are not real. If we're going to make progress, you compare what we have today in 2025 as a transport system to what it was in 2000, to what it was in 1975. And it's a deterioration instead of an improvement, which means we're doing more and more of things that are not right for the industry. So we have to change what we're doing. And that is what this whole thing is about. So I'm glad that I was able to read off 16 of the 31 who see clearly that they want that change.
All right. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have more with Dr. Louis Zabaneh right after this.
Are you on your phone right now, scrolling on social media, listening to the radio, or watching TV? Have you ever stopped to think, what's powering my device right now? You see, electricity is essential for everyday life, powering our homes, businesses, transportation, and of course, that one binge-worthy series that you just can't stop watching. But how does it all work? This season on the What's and Why's of Energy, we're taking you behind the scenes, bringing you the latest updates and answers to your biggest energy questions. My name is Emmanuel Petch, and I invite you to join us as we go live on Facebook and get ready to see energy in a whole new light. Like, share, and follow us to be part of the conversation.
Belize Electricity Limited, providing you safe and reliable power when you need it.
Unwrap the joy of crystal clear picture and sound from Iowa, the brand that offers you affordability and exceptional quality. Iowa has a wide range of exceptional products to choose from, such as TVs, speakers, headphones, home appliances, and much more at affordable prices that won't break the bank. Enhance your audio-visual entertainment experience with Iowa, and for your convenience, parts are readily available in country for hassle-free maintenance. You can find Iowa products at your local electronics store countrywide. Choose Iowa, the best in home entertainment and household appliances.
In our world that's always changing, one thing stays the same.
Our promise as Smart Belize to keep you connected.
Connected to the moments, the people, and the future that matter most.
With every new tower, our service upgrades, and every new smile, we're keeping our promise in building more than a network.
We're building a future, a family as Smart Belize. From Punta Gorda to Corozal, we are here not just as a network, but as your partner in progress.
We have grown significantly over the past 20 years, and we just keep growing. Thank you for placing your trust in us. We remain dedicated to providing meaningful connections that bring value in every way that matters to you. We continue to bring people together.
Long before the day begins, they're already at work in every district, in every village, serving with heart, duty, and pride. They are the backbone of our country's progress, the faces of service you don't always see, but always feel. From health to education, safety to administration, our public officers keep Belize moving forward. This Public Service Day, we pause to say thank you and celebrate with a week of activities for the commitment, for the integrity, for the resilience. Let's celebrate those who serve us all. Public Service Day 2025. 5 years to 2030. Accelerating public service delivery for a sustainable future. This message was brought to you by the Ministry of Public Service, Governance and Disaster Risk Management.
And welcome back. We continue our conversation with Transport Minister Dr. Louis Zabaneh. We are talking about everything and all things that has to do with public transportation in this country. Dr. Zab, there was a conversation that we had with our previous guests on this matter last week, where we were looking at the idea of buses and bus conductors and revenue collection from these particular operations. And I was sure to say that, as far as I'm aware, having traveled extensively outside of the country, many other jurisdictions don't have conductors. You go in, you get a bus pass or a card, so to speak. You tap it up, and then to get on board the train or the bus or what have you, you simply swipe, and that charge is deducted from the amount that's on the card itself, and you go about your business. I gather that a part of what's taking place here is the fact that not all the revenues that ought to be coming to the bus operators are reaching their pockets simply because the middleman, which is the conductor, may be siphoning stuff off the top.
That's been a perpetual problem from the time when I worked with my dad at Z-Line. This was a major focus on finding ways and means to try and get in as much of the income. There's a little joke that I always share, which is that me and my dad went to visit a construction site, 3 floors, and we blew the horn, and the conductor comes out. We ask him which floors is for us, which one are the floors, right? So it is something that every operator across the country will tell you they have that problem, unless it's a mom and pop thing where they drive and they actually collect the money themselves. I have here, which is not a new technology at all. This one here is used in Mexico City, and it has about 4 or 5 different services, the subway, the buses, even the bicycles
The city bikes.
that you can use this card for. So let's say you put on 5,000 pesos on it by going to a machine, and you get the card, and then you can go and you swipe it, or you put it in a little slot, or you tap it, and then you can get that service. So the money goes direct to the bank account of that service provider. This one is used in southeastern Mexico, Merida, Cancun, Playa, that whole way for the ADO services that they provide. This is not new technology. You see this, this has existed for a long time. So that when you have too many small operators that cannot afford to have this system on their bus lines, because there's a certain amount of capital you have to pay to get this in place, then they have that perpetual problem of not getting all of their income. So if they were to get $100, they might get 50. That's a big loss to them. And so then what do? They have lower revenues. Their costs are higher because they can't get discounts and so on. They don't have economies of scale. And so then they will cry for an increase in fares. That will be the first cry. Government, help me, so you could increase the fares. Government, help me, give me duty-free fuel so I could drop my costs. But that's because of how the industry is structured. Now, when you are able to have a larger consolidated company that can afford these kinds of systems, then the company, which by the way is owned by the same operators, just know that in this case they're shareholders, they're not individual owners. They still get and have command of the cash flows that come off of this higher profit-making entity, right? And they get that as dividends. That's where we have difficulty for some of them to
I'm laughing
understand.
to myself, and you'll forgive the irony of it all. What you've described just now is, in my opinion, akin to what the government goes through in terms of revenue collections where taxes are concerned, right? You have all of these uncollected monies out there, right? But you know, we're not doing enough to go after that. It's easier to say, well, make we increase
and then the government still makes a loss.
But I digress. I was just laughing.
Well,
but it also
think of a system like this, right? That would
but it also
collect more money.
deduces overcrowding as well. And as much as I can, and I can give kudos to some of the bus operators that have introduced the ticketing system and so forth, there is still this miscommunication between the person that's selling the ticket at the terminal and the conductor that is on the bus, because then you don't have enough seats. And then you have a conductor, and I'll tell you that on my problem. I'm managing the bus. I don't know who to sell you a ticket. And it does create, again, this overcrowding, but it does lead me to the second issue, which is on part of the transportation department, where they are managing the terminals, they are looking at the buses coming and going. There is still overcrowding and mismanagement of these buses because the conductor will tell you, oh no, just sit down, 3 to a seat. You already did stuff me 2 to a seat, and you have put somebody else beside me, 3 to a seat, just so that you could come out of the terminal gate. And then you have all of these standees. Somebody, they hang outside the door, and you're still going to stop for 5 more people.
Yes, and you might break down on the road.
And you might break down on the road. So how are we addressing all of these different issues in that
It's
plan?
an absolutely uncivilized system that we have here. Let's talk about the terminals themselves. Dilapidated in many cases. I visited them. You go into the bathrooms, the toilet seats. There's no seat on the toilet. Females, you know, whatever.
It's gross.
The point is that it's uncivilized. That's the best word I could think of in 2025. And so these are the issues now that are there, and when we understand them and we see them, we recognize that a consolidated modern company owned by the same persons, just in a different form, will be able to address these things. So here is how it works. Government comes in to the company with the value of the terminals. So right now we're in the phase where we are hiring the auditors. We've met with them already. There was a committee formed, 1 member from the ministry and 4 operators. And that committee selected 6 auditing firms. The 6 auditing firms are being given their terms of reference, where they will go and value each one of the operators, will value the terminals, and will have an opening balance sheet. I've had the privilege also, just last Friday, of meeting with the higher-ups of Social Security, just sharing the concept, and they find the concept to be very intriguing and along the lines of what it is that they do in terms of things that they could consider for investing Social Security funds. Why? Because it affects so many people across the country who are paying into the fund. So you have a lot of parties who find this arrangement very interesting and attractive, including, for example, our international partners, because the idea is that we will upgrade all the terminals. We need to build a new terminal in Toledo in PG that doesn't have one. We need one in San Ignacio. The bus stops out by the Welcome Center, imagine. The one in Benke we're moving out of there soon. The Orange Walk doesn't have one that's proper. So, and then Belize City, that should be the crown jewel. That should be the one where we have something that when we go there, we can all be proud as a nation, man. We have to have some pride, please, man. Come on.
You're right. Let's talk infrastructure for a second then. I've heard everything perhaps under the sun where it comes to bus operators and why they are unable to improve their fleet and improve their services. I've heard poor infrastructure in terms of highway, but then I say all successive governments have paved so much miles of road, right? I've heard, okay, can't go to the bank and draw a loan to be able to upgrade my fleet because, you know, the runs and whatever are the reasons there. And then you go to the bus terminals, which you just described, and it's completely dilapidated. When you propose this idea of a national bus company, is it then to look at all of these particular areas that I just mentioned? Because as recent as Friday, one bus operator from the north who was part of a UDP press conference the day before was saying, look, well, we need better infrastructure, right? But it goes back to what I'm saying. Every time I look around, so much miles of road is being paved and we're improving as we go along. So what infrastructure? Is that something that you guys are proposing to address?
Belizeans are smart people. So when you talk something that's, I don't want to be crude, but if you talk nonsense, people will be able to see that. Right? The highways all across the country have been improved considerably compared to 25 years ago. But the bus system has not kept up with that, right? So, you know, this argument that, okay, so the permits are only a year, that's one of the arguments. And if we just have a permit for a year, the bank will not lend us money for us to upgrade our fleet. Now think about if you don't do root cause analysis here, it sounds good. It sounds like, man, that makes sense, man. Give me something for 10 years, right? And then I could go to the bank, and then the bank. But who says that the bank will not do a root cause analysis as well? And what will they see? They will see that you have 31 operators and that they are already working with a very thin margin. And what are you going to do now? You're going to be burdening an already high cost operator with a big bank loan, so that now they're going to be having to buy a bus that's $100,000 instead of $30,000. So for one bus, it's going to be the cost of 3 of the buses they had. And that's just a used, still a used upper class bus, if you will, upper scale bus, if you will. And so you are, by not doing the proper analysis, you would be even burdening then the operators even more. And it doesn't take away the racing, because you still have all the permits out there. So what you answer, the ones who can get the newer buses will be racing now with newer buses. One operator told us in that meeting that we had with the media, he said, my bus Lee older, so I can't keep up with the race with the other bigger operator. We have one newer bus.
I heard
So
that.
right?
He's admitting to a race.
Right, thank you. So now what will happen? They will give a lean newer bus, and now newer buses will be racing, because we are not addressing the root cause of the problem, which is that we have too many operators on the road, and we're not taking the bus business seriously, that there are many objectives that we have thrown in the drain, if you will, right? The objective of safety, the objective of reliability, and all these other things.
I wanted to go back to my previous question about the management from the transportation side, for that very reason, because if we hold these bus drivers and these conductors accountable for the way that they mismanage commuters when they get on the bus, I would imagine that there would be less of that, right? So how are we addressing that part of the issue?
So here's, and that, thank you for mentioning that. So this would be the timeline. We, at the end of July, should have had the evaluations from the auditors, so we could have like sort of an opening balance sheet that I could take to cabinet. The auditors asked if we could give them another month. So when I go to cabinet tomorrow, I'll be asking for that additional month. So the end of August, fine. So at that point, we get a clear idea of the opening balance sheet. We have the idea of the cost structure of the industry, right? Because, you know, the operators who came on are saying, well, this is a concept, we can't accept that because they're not giving us anything in black and white. But how can we give anything in black and white if we don't have the data yet? We have to get the data before we can come and say, here is how the projections will look like based on the numbers, right? Otherwise, we do guesstimates, and that's not the way we should do things. So it goes to cabinet then, and cabinet decides, okay, this is the opening balance sheet, this is how many operators have come on board, etc., etc. And then if they give the green light to go forward from there, then we would start setting up the company, the legal company, the legislation that would protect it, and then we go from there. The operators and the government and whoever else is in there choose a board of directors. Then the board of directors, this is now November, December, hire a professional management team that then January 1st manage the business going forward. We have 3 very viable, very attractive funding opportunities that we can, within a year and a half, renew the entire fleet with brand new buses, air-conditioned buses, bucket seat buses, and they don't have to be the same size. Some can be 54-seaters, some can be 34-seaters. So like, for example, what you asked this morning, that you have 1.5 load of people at a certain time. They want to stuff everybody in one bus, right? Because then, of course, you can make more. What you would do then? You'd have a full-size bus, and then you would have the smaller bus that can then leave 5-10 minutes after, and everybody sits properly in the bus. The windows not drop and rain, they come in, and you have a comfortable ride that you get on time to your destination. And the next thing, we now will be requiring that drivers pass a test. I've heard out there people saying, "Oh, you will be blocking people from coming into the industry now because of this consolidation." No, it's the same people who are in the industry who will be available to do the driving, to be mechanics, to be the people at the front desk, etc. But then they have to show that they have competence and aptitude to do the work. So now we can filter out those drivers that don't qualify, that shouldn't be there. They should have a certain number of years of experience driving before you come into the business. Things like that, right?
Doc, before we let you go, I have two questions. One was raised by the stakeholders with respect of dividends, right? Based on the shares that they would have in the company. Can you explain that for us?
Yes. So we've discussed that. And again, now we have, as I said, I read off 16 of the operators earlier who are supporting, and another 5 who we're waiting for them, and they more than likely will be joining and making that official. The dividends, as we explained to them in a corporate structure, the board decides we're going to do dividends every 3 months or every 6 months or what. They have the right to decide that based on the ownership, what they're directed to do. So now instead and this is where a number of them have a difficulty with that. But out of that list that I gave you, about half of them are small operators. So I have to give them kudos for agreeing and understanding, sitting, and we've sat for hours, and talked about this. You're comparing, collecting as your conductors bring the money to you every day. You get so much per day for your bus, and then you have your expenses. You have to go buy fuel. So you got at the gas station, go buy fuel. Imagine you look by your tires if they're onion skin, and at some point you say, "Man, I have to change this tire." You go buy it at the shop, and that's how they operate now. So they know. So I said, well, think about what do you make per month. Many of them don't even keep books to know how much they actually make per month. But if you were to do that, then you have an idea on a monthly basis how much. Let's say you make 4,000 a month, right? So in 3 months, you're talking 12,000, right? So now as a company, the company may decide to give dividends. That 4,000 we're talking about is profit per month that you make after you spend for your expenses, your conductor, your driver, everything else, right?
Yeah.
And remember, you're getting a lower income. You don't have this electronic system that will raise your revenues. Now, in a national company, you have an opportunity to have higher revenues, you have lower costs, and so it is a more profitable venture, and that profit now is going to be distributed as dividends on a quarterly basis. So until we get the numbers, because we don't know yet, we cannot now come and tell you, all right, here is what we're projecting for the company. On a quarterly basis, you would be getting 10,000, 12,000, or 15,000. Then you make the decision, right?
Yeah.
And because you can't predict exactly how much that will be.
And because you can't just yet present any numbers, they're looking at it as a romantic notion that this is perhaps a pie in the sky.
In our last meeting with them, I want to thank Dr. Canton from the National Gas Company. He came and explained what a PPP is. Mr. Yashin Dujon came and explained for Southern Deport Development Limited. They explained the process. These companies were one time a concept, right? National Gas Company started in 2019, but in 2017 it was a concept. Southern Deport was a concept 3 years ago, and now it is being developed. So in a similar way, there's nothing negative about having a concept. It's an ideal, it's an idea that then you work towards developing it and bringing people on board to get it to come to reality. That is what happened. I told them Belmopan City, where we were, right? In the early 60s was a concept. Now it's a city. So that's the idea. That's what we have to ferment. Good concepts that then we can realize into things that are good for Belize.
Doc, my final question. We had a tragic road traffic accident in Hattieville on Thursday where a male minor, 16 years old, lost his life. And I think one of the pressing concerns that residents of Hattieville are having is that while the child may have been in the wrong or the bus driver may have been in the wrong, you have a fatal RTA in a community where there are specific speed limits, and it would seem from the outside, ostensibly, that the bus may have been speeding as to the impact that that child was hit. Let's get your take on that.
No, it's a tragedy, and condolences to the family there. You know, when you hear that in any part, I mean, this is the recent one, but you hear it all across the country. You know, this is the tragedy of underdevelopment, and that's why we have to do things like we're working on, so that we can have more resources to do things better. I want to commend our Minister of Infrastructure Development, who, in this project going on the George Price Highway, they're considering now the shoulders. You need to have shoulders so that you can have bicycles on the shoulders. We know that on the Western Highway, George Price Highway, we have cyclists, our cyclists who train, right, for all the races that occur throughout the year, Holy Saturday race, etc. And we know as drivers how it could be quite dangerous. You have to have a certain level of empathy to the rider so that you're not blowing them and because they're in front of you. So a number of things are needed now. You need to have those shoulders, those riding lanes in the villages so that people can be safe, right? Because it's a highway. And then have the appropriate speed bumps where they need to be once it's within the village to make sure that you control the speed. And then the enforcement that is, as I talked about earlier, that is lacking, and we have to accept that these are things that have to be improved. And again, as I said, I'm pleased that CEO Williams is there now working very hard on the side of enforcement, on the side of training, so that we could do these things. And then for the buses, for the drivers to be better trained so that they know where speeding limits are. And we have to put up the signage, right? This is 30 miles an hour. And then as a country, we have to start obeying laws, right? If you say 30, people just fly through. You have stop signs, people just fly through. The light red sometimes, and people just cut in front of you. These are things now that as a nation, for this to work, and that's why I appealed everywhere I go, that for things like this to work, we have to come together as a nation and change the bad habits that we've developed over the years. Not be afraid to point out to a fellow citizen in a nice way, hey man, you know, we could try to do that one, Lee better, right? You don't have to bawl after the person or anything, but we have to take on responsibility as citizens. And so with that said, I want to appeal to the public, call your area rep, right? And tell them that you want this national company because you believe in it. Why? Lobbying in government, the people who are organized together, you see how we have now 15 people in the Belize bus thing. They make it sound like then they represent everybody. They are a small group compared to the 10,000 commuters that are out there who we should be working for. And I want to ask the commuters, call your area reps and tell them that you want this because you know that this is going to be better for you, right? So don't just sit back and think that everything will happen just like that. We all have to work together, and so I am appealing for that help. Let us all come together and appeal to our decision makers, my colleagues, for this to become a reality.
I think, Minister Zab, my final, and we have to wrap up. If this plan comes to fruition, let's say everything goes, the stars are aligned, all bus companies, operators decide that they're going to go with this plan, and it works out. How do you plan to ensure that the foundational roots of this plan remain in place even if your administration is no longer in power?
Well, thank you for asking that, and of course for all the good questions you've asked. Because we don't have to have 100% of them agreeing for this to occur. Right now, the majority in the West have agreed, the majority in the South have agreed. I anticipate that they will all be on board, so that we can start with 16 operators, right? Once we're not in any way blocking anybody from coming in. right? No, that's a legal matter, right? Once you're not blocking them from coming in, you're not discriminating in any way. And we're not discriminating, every single one of them, including that operator who said he's a UDP, at a UDP thing. I told him in particular, I said, this don't have to do nothing with UDP and PUP. This has to do with the safety of our people. Let's work together. It will improve your profitability. It will improve the overall service to our people, right? So that is the approach that we're taking in this case. And I'm optimistic that even if it's only 20 or 21 who come on board, that we will still be able to get kicked off at an early time, that the Belizean people and commuters can begin to have a national bus system that we can all be proud of.
Thank you so much, Minister Zabaneh, for this conversation.
Thanks for the opportunity.
You do have to come back once, if this plan comes to fruition, we'll discuss it further. But thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
We are going to take another quick break, and we'll be switching gears as the CCC celebrates 20 years of regional climate leadership. You don't want to miss that conversation. We'll be right back.
Let's all be safe during the rainy season. Belize Electricity Limited reminds you that heavy rains can cause flooding in your neighborhood and on roads. Avoid driving or walking in flooded areas, which can have hidden dangers such as debris and fallen power lines. Belize Electricity Limited cares about your safety. Please stay safe.
My name is Leomar Langzert and I'm a teacher and I bank with Belize Bank Independence Branch. What I enjoy is the safety features that the app offers. I have a sense of not having to worry or be concerned about somebody finding my password and username to sign in the application because of the use of the one-time password. And another feature that I love, that I use the most, is how the app synchronizes with my fingerprint on my device. I enjoy the rapid and easy, seamless process to apply for loans through the Belize Bank, and I don't have to be having too much back and forth to visit or take time to visit the bank. They also start to offer the online applications through the app for loan applications, which I believe is very neat. I would definitely recommend Belize Bank to other teachers because one of all the features and advantages that the app offer with these online that Belize Bank offered is basically everything that you can do in the palm of your hand. So I would definitely recommend the bank to other teachers.
We at Fulltech Systems understand that technology isn't just a tool, it's a game changer. At home, smart devices and AI are revolutionizing daily life. In education, tech is making learning more interactive and accessible for students and educators alike. For businesses and government, it's driving innovation, streamlining operations, and unlocking growth, leveraging tech for better services, infrastructure, and security. At Fulltech Systems, we help you thrive with cutting-edge solutions, partnering with leaders like Dell, HP, Microsoft, APC, Fortinet, Cisco, and Tomy. We deliver the right products for your needs, whether it's boosting efficiency, improving customer engagement, or scaling operations. Connect with us and let's drive innovation together. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you come for the price, but stay for the service.
Here's how to access your contribution history on the My Social Security portal. First, go to your browser and type ssbportal.org.bz. Enter your email and password, then click Log In. Once logged in, you'll see your full portal account on the screen. On the left-hand side, you'll notice a drop-down menu for added features. Click on History, choose Contributions, read the disclaimer, then click Continue. You'll now see a full window displaying your contribution history. In the table, each row represents a different year. For example, let's look at the year 2024. Click on the row and a detailed breakdown will appear. This breakdown includes your employer's name, your earnings for each month and week, contribution type, the amounts paid, and that's how you can explore the new contribution feature on the My Social Security portal. It's quick, easy, and keeps your Social Security information right at your fingertips. Create your account today.
And welcome back. For our next conversation, I have been joined in studio by Dr. Colin Young. He's the Executive Director of the 5 Cs. And we're going to be discussing a milestone that has been achieved by the 5 Cs in Belize. 20 years of climate leadership within the region. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning, and thanks for having me, Sani.
Let's look back at the genesis of the 5 Cs and how it established itself in Belize to discuss matters of environment, matters of climate resilience, and what have you, and how we got to our 20th anniversary.
So the 5 Cs, the idea of a Caribbean Community Climate Change Center became quite apparent in the early 2000s when there were projects that were being implemented in the region by the World Bank and the Global Environmental Facility. And during the implementation of those projects, it became very clear that the piecemeal project-by-project approach would not have the kind of sustained impact that we wanted to see in the region. And so out of one of these projects, the idea of a regional center to coordinate climate change response in the region was born. And so they set up a task force comprised of persons from across the Caribbean, including persons from Belize. Now Ambassador Carlos Fuller from Belize was a part of that task force. And that task force essentially helped develop what would then become the 5 Cs. And it was taken to what we call the COTED, which is a Ministers of Environment of the Caribbean meeting, where the idea of the 5 Cs was born. And then in 2002, right here in Belize, CARICOM heads of government at the 13th intersessional meeting, they would set up and approve the agreement establishing the center. At the time, you had the Right Honorable Prime Minister Said Musa, who was the Prime Minister of Belize at the time, and you had the current Prime Minister of Belize, Honorable Johnny Briceño, who was the Minister of Natural Resources at the time. And they were both successful in convincing their counterparts, the other heads of government in the region, that Belize should be the location and the host of the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center. And so that is how there were 4 countries that bid to host the center. The last 2 countries were Barbados and Belize. And Honorable Prime Minister Said Musa, at a meeting with the Barbados Prime Minister, had a bilateral, and out of that meeting, when they came out, Belize secured the host country of the 5 Cs. And so in February of 2002, the agreement establishing the 5 Cs as a CARICOM institution was signed. And it had a very simple mandate: coordinate the region's response to climate change. So even then, the heads of government recognized that climate change is one of the greatest threats to the survival of small island developing states. So they were quite visionary. They were also quite bold, because even though they set up the 5 Cs to coordinate the region's response to climate change, one of the interesting things about the 5 Cs, it was the first CARICOM institution that was set up to be self-financed. In other words, you had this important work to do, but you had to find the money on your own to run its operations.
Looking back over the 20 years, and you've alluded to this, that putting this together was quite visionary in terms of forecasting or foreseeing what would be an issue that the rest of the world is also grappling with. But my question, Doc, is that there is so much buzz around climate change and the real effects that we're experiencing, not only as a region, but globally. But when you go to various fora to discuss climate change and the need for financing to address it properly, it comes off, my opinion, as a lot of talk shop. And there is little action where actually putting your money is concerned. What are your thoughts?
I would agree. I would want to agree with you, Isani, that for those standing on the outside looking in, you would absolutely come to that conclusion that it is in fact a lot of talk shop. And while there are important decisions that are made at these gatherings and at these conferences, our ability to follow up and deliver on even the little that we agree on has always been a difficult undertaking. But I think we need to take a step back and ask the question, if multilateralism isn't the answer, then what is? Right? And so when you have 195 countries in the world all trying to meet at a meeting and agree on what are the priorities that we should pursue, putting aside national interests, putting aside current economic situations, putting aside various geopolitical pressures, how do you navigate that landscape? And I think as small island developing states and low-lying coastal states like Belize and small countries like St. Kitts and Nevis with only 75,000 people, going it alone in the international space is not the answer. Collectively and as a region, as CARICOM, we stand a much better chance when we are united. When all of the small island developing states across the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean and the Caribbean unite together, we have a collective voice that is greater than each individual country. And so we continue to, despite our disappointments, despite the fact that developed countries, those who are most responsible for causing human anthropogenic climate change, despite the fact that they're not delivering on their promise of providing more money, more technology, and more capacity building, the truth is that some traction has been made and some progress has been made, albeit not at the rate that we would want. And so I come back to the point that as slow and as fragmented as the current process is at the moment, unfortunately there is not another better alternative that exists. And so we must continue. We must be a part of the process. We have to be at the table. We have to amplify our voices while we continue to do what we can to help protect our people and lives and livelihoods.
What is, in a sense, disheartening when you look at the universal picture is the fact that small island developing states aren't necessarily the culprits in all of this, right? We're way too small. If you look at it as a percentage, we're way too small to be the primary emitters, right? But we are the ones who feel it the most. When you think of erosion, when you think of devastating natural disasters, right? We're in the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season. Goes all the way through to November 31st or whatever it is, last day in November. But it's no longer a time where we could say, you know what? If a storm comes our way, it might not be as dreadful as it would be now based on all of these factors that are coming to play. When you go before these other world leaders and these change agents and what have you, what is the pitch? Because at the end of the day, we come from small island developing states, as SID stands for. What is the pitch to convince them to do more?
The pitch has always been to share the lived experiences and to show the suffering of our people and the loss of lives and livelihoods. When you look at, for example, what Hurricane Maria would have done to countries in the Caribbean, like Dominica, that in a few hours destroyed the equivalent of 226% of its GDP. And the impact that would have on the sustainable development aspirations of its people, where critical infrastructure, hospitals, schools, energy systems, all destroyed within a few hours. And the years it would take just to get back to pre-hurricane GDP. Not to mention that in those periods you'll have storms, perhaps more hurricanes. Belize has had its share. We've had hurricane, for example, Hurricane Hattie, which a lot of persons might remember. But Category 5 hurricanes are now becoming more frequent.
Exactly.
They're becoming, and they get stronger very, very quickly. So there was once upon a time, hurricanes, you heard them, they were coming, and you had time. You just saw the one that hit Mexico just last week, got from a Category 1 to a Category 4 in the matter of hours. And so it gives people very little time. So when you go in front of these larger world leaders, sometimes a picture is worth more than 1,000 words. However, with the geopolitics changing, the narrative has to also change. So not only are we saying it's an injustice, it's an injustice, the fact that you are responsible for the suffering and the losses and damages that we are experiencing, and so it has to be fixed from a moral, strategic standpoint. But we're also seeing the effects that climate change has on the movement and displacement of people, and the so-called climate refugees. And so now speaking that language of how Europe, of how the US, and how if you don't do enough to cut emissions, to slow down climate change, then people are going to move. And when people move, it's going to become a national security issue, because now you'll have migrants moving in large numbers because they can't grow food to feed their families, and they've lost every single thing because of the disasters that they're experiencing. So I think a combination of showing the link between things like immigration, about the issues around poverty, and where there's a lot of poverty, there is economic instability, and also in terms of the suffering of the most vulnerable in the world, women, children, people with disabilities, the elderly, and then obviously the economic impacts that it's having. It's a whole narrative that we need to continue to tell and continue to show these stories. And by doing so, we get to stimulate the kind of action. But Isani, we have to be real. There are powerful countries in the world, there are powerful persons in the world who are spending a lot of money trying to convince the world that climate change is
a figment of the imagination.
Is a figment of the imagination. Yeah. And with the advent of social media, there's a counter narrative. There's a counter narrative out there that that confuses people. It sort of, if it fits within your worldview and your ideology, you tend to want to believe it, and you sort of lock everything else out. And so we must also become quite savvy without being overly academic and overly bureaucratic, to speak in very simple ways to have people understand what we're trying to convey. That by protecting the most vulnerable among us, everybody benefits, everybody wins. And we can help to slow some of the suffering that we're seeing from these increased climate-related events.
Doc, 20 years later, does the 5 Cs have complete buy-in from all the countries within the Caribbean that are part of this initiative?
Well, all the countries have signed on to the agreement establishing the center, except for a couple. And I have to give credit to all of those persons who came before, because Dr. Kenrick Leslie, the first executive director of the 5 Cs, who was there from the beginning up until 2020, they did a lot of good to create the kind of ownership and buy-in of our member states across the region. And I often say, today the 5Cs still plays a fundamentally important role across the region. We bring ministers together twice a year to agree on what the priorities will be for CARICOM going into these COP negotiations, the talk shops you spoke about. We continue to mobilize a significant amount of resources for our member states. To date, the 5Cs has mobilized over $250 million US for countries across the region, including for Belize. We continue to build the data and information architecture to ensure that we're collecting and analyzing and using the data for evidence-based decision making. And so the 5Cs has performed, it has delivered. Not to mention that, as I said, it does not get subventions from member states. And I think I'll say this, Isani, last year there was a study done by the Oxford Development Institute that asked countries in the region who were their preferred entity that they wanted to work with to access climate finance. And there were lots of international organizations in there. There were, GIZ, UNDP, ADB, IDB, CDB, other organizations, and 5Cs was ranked at the very top. And so it is a demonstration of the work that the center has been doing. It is going to, the environment in which the 5Cs was founded in 2002, operationally it opened in 2005. And the world in 2025 is quite different. We have actually seen a significant change both in terms of the official development assistance. In fact, next year we're expecting that the 7 biggest countries that used to provide bilateral support are going to cut their support by up to 28%. We're seeing war in Europe, and we're seeing countries diverting aid that was meant for the global south to now go into defense in Europe. We're seeing increased conflict in the Middle East. We are seeing a more internal look by countries, those same countries that are responsible for causing climate change. And so our ability to navigate the changing geopolitical landscape and the changing international financial landscape is going to require even more support and ownership from our governments in the next 20 years. The 5Cs has made it this far because of its ability to form and forge strategic partnerships and its ability to engage and work with partners and to innovate and to be flexible. That is what is going to also allow it to navigate the changes that is being seen. But as a CARICOM institution, we're only as strong as the support and as the legitimacy that we get from the 15 CARICOM member states.
Doc, before we let you go, what are we doing to celebrate 20 years? I know there is an agenda for events to take place later this week.
Yes, we want to obviously thank the government of Belize who have agreed, and the Prime Minister to agree to co-host the 20th anniversary celebrations with the 5Cs. And we actually start off a couple days of events. Tomorrow, we actually have, the Prime Minister is hosting a welcome reception. We have about 50 persons coming from all over the world and from the Caribbean to join us who were instrumental in starting and founding of the 5Cs. And then on Wednesday, we have a groundbreaking ceremony in Belmopan. The Prime Minister of St. Lucia is coming. He's the quasi-cabinet lead for CARICOM for Sustainable Development, and he's joining the Honorable Prime Minister John Briceño at UB in the morning for a groundbreaking ceremony. The 5Cs is finally going to be constructing its permanent headquarters on the campus of the university. And then at 1:30 on Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, we have a series of panel discussions at the Biltmore that looks at the pre-establishment of the 5Cs, what led to its establishment. We have a panel that will look at the first 15 years of what worked, what were the lessons, what were the successes. And then we have the third panel, which would look at the current and future trajectory of the 5Cs. And then at 6:30 on Wednesday evening, on the 25th, we are actually going to have the anniversary celebrations and a banquet where we are also going to be issuing some awards to those persons and organizations and governments that were instrumental. So we are joined by ministers from across the Caribbean, by the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, persons from the CARICOM Secretariat, our donor partners, and regional institutions. And so what we're trying to do is to demonstrate that the experiment that the heads of government tried 20 years ago has proven to be very successful, and that the 5Cs continues to deliver exceptional value for our member states. And ultimately, Sani, we are here to assist our member states to achieve the development and climate change plans that they have. And what drives us and what drives my team and my staff is the fact that our actions, in a small way, have a very tangible and positive impact on the lives and livelihoods of about 40 million people across the region.
Expertly put. Thanks a lot for joining us this morning, Doc. We take a commercial break now, and when we return, it's our friends from FCD to close off the show.
Belize is kicking off Father's Day with popping deals for dad. In the month of June, visit a Belize near you and get 19 to 25% off selected items such as Milwaukee and Axie power tools, Charbroil barbecue grills, car care products, Karcher pressure washers, and much, much more. Make dad happy with popping deals for dad in June, only at Belize.
Belize, Belize, oh, Belize, 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 oh.
In our world that's always changing, one thing stays the same.
Our promise as Smart Belize to keep you connected.
Connected to the moments, the people, and the future that matter most.
With every new tower, our service upgrades, and every new smile, we're keeping our promise in building more than a network.
We're building a future, a family as Smart Belize. From Punta Gorda to Curacao, we are here not just as a network, but as your partner in progress.
We have grown significantly over the past 20 years, and we just keep growing. Thank you for placing your trust in us. We remain dedicated to providing meaningful connections that bring value in every way that matters to you. We continue to bring people together.
Veracidad, imparcialidad.
Este es el término utilizado.
Hemos estado haciendo el trabajo como organización.
Y tus noticias en español.
Están en aguas beliceñas, entonces esta bandera se queda aquí.
Sintoniza Canal 5 cada viernes a las 7 de la noche.
Tenemos que resolver los grandes problemas de este país.
Su voz importa, su acción cuenta.
Transfusión sanguínea, elementos que indican un deterioro evidente del estado de salud.
Somos Noticiero 5 semanal.
Perdió la vida en un heroico intento de proteger a su hermano. El Tribunal de Magistrados de la ciudad de Belice se paralizó. La policía está investigando 2 asesinatos separados.
Tu fuente de información.
back. Welcome back. We have been joined by our Friends for Conservation and Development. And the conversation is all about reaching new heights at the heart of the Chiquibul. Joining us on our couch is the Executive Director of the FCD, Mr. Rafael Manzanero. Good morning.
Good morning.
And he is joined by an international mountaineer, Ms. Viridiana Alvarez. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So we're here really to discuss a new, exciting venture in Chiquibul, but it's not that new, really. We're hoping to reach to the top of the highest peak
in Belize,
right, by way of Doyle's Delight. Let's talk about this adventure.
Yeah, so Doyle's is actually the highest point, 1,124 meters.
Wow.
Some 3,688 feet. But many people really have never heard about this thing. It is on the main ridges of the main divide, the highest mountains in Belize, which is divided by Cayo and the Toledo district. So that point has actually been climbed before, but in many cases, people used to do it like on a helicopter.
So they don't really climb it then?
So they would actually take a ride, and then from there, then they would walk.
So they don't really climb it?
So they were not really going through the long distance
terrain,
hiking.
yeah.
In 1996, we as Youth Environmental Action Group, we decided really to do one of those forced expeditions. You know, Sharmatola did the other expeditions in 2004, 2006. But it is not really widely open because even though you can say, well, you know, other mountains in the world are much more higher, the ones in Costa Rica, Honduras, but this one, what makes it really unique is the pristine environment, and also it is remote, it is rugged terrain. So there's not really like a track like Victoria Peak where you just go in.
There's a trail.
So it's very, very different. So the challenge is really how to really navigate in this place and to be able to find that location. And so it is not really widely open. In fact, if you check around Belize, who have been there, I don't think you will see a lot of
the
hands
balance
up.
of Victoria Peak would outweigh that significantly.
Right, exactly. So it is really a wilderness zone. Wilderness zone, but it is the highest point. And I think that you know, it's one of those other kind of the magic and the beauty of the Chiquibul National Park. So hopefully in the future it's going to be a little bit much more accessible for adventure. It's really more a wild area to be able to visit.
So how long does it take, more or less? And you were there in '96, as you said, as a young boy. How long does it take, more or less, to be able to reach the summit of the Doyle's Delight?
So, I mean, basically, and in the beginning, when the Youth Environmental Action Group went, I mean, I was not on that particular one.
Okay.
But at that time, it took them about 10 days to be able to reach there. Now, you know, Viridiana can explain, but it basically now you can reach it. If you're a good hiker, you can do it in 2 days.
So would Viridiana need like a machete to kind of just like whip her way through?
Yes, it's something like that.
Okay.
Yes, it's something like that where you have to find your route. It is a little bit much more open right now.
Okay.
But it is really more, basically you're climbing up on all the Maya Mountain Ridge. So what you see on the map, you might say, well, you know, it's really a short thing that you can see on the map.
No, I don't trust the map.
But on the map, they are, you know, you can take a couple of hours just climbing a mountain, you know. So that's really the kind of the point. But I would say, you know, Imani, that you know, Isani, you know, I would say that if you're a good hiker, you know, it depends how hard you want to make it. Because you can start from our main camp. From Tapir Camp, if you just go hiking all the way, we have discussed about Rio Blanco, Ceibo Chico. So that is the main entrance then into the foothills of the Maya Mountains. So from there, you can still take another 2-3 days. So in reality, if you want to do the long one, it can take you 5 days just one way in. Now, the easy, I mean, one of the other options is you take a tractor like what we did. You go there on a tractor, and from there then you start to climb. If you're a good hiker, you can do it a day and night, so you can break a record, right? I mean, if you are really good into that. I went there about 4 years ago.
That sounds arduous,
yes,
man.
yes.
Tough.
But Viridiana, is this your first time in Belize?
Second time.
Second time in Belize, and you are an international mountaineer. Let's dive into that particular field, and where have you been so far, and how does it compare to Doyle's Delight?
Well, I've been in, I have climbed the 14, we call it 8,000 meter peaks. That is the highest mountains in the world.
Wow.
So it's totally different, like with glaciers, and so totally different expeditions.
Okay.
But I'm very happy, and I feel very honored to be part of this expedition and be part of this small group on top of Doyle's Delight.
Viridiana, let's go way back. What got you into mountaineering?
And why?
How did this all come to be?
Because,
you know, I'm from Mexico, so I was working in an office like a normal person, and when I was 30, I climbed my first mountain that is the highest in Mexico, that is Pico de Orizaba. And from there, I got in love with mountains. And I said, wow, if this is the view of the highest peak in Mexico, how would it be in Everest? So it took me 3 years to go there, and after Everest, I said, no, this is I love it. So
you did Everest, which clearly is a very different terrain from Mexico and that of Doyle's Delight. How do you prepare for something like this?
It's a physical preparation, but also, you know, I think the most important training is here. And we were discussing outside and about like Everest was tough, but also here was tough too. And the hardest mountain we can climb, I think, is inside. So all the breaking paradigms, I mean, I come from a city that there's no mountains. So from there you start climbing your own mountain.
Wow. I would like to challenge you then, Mr. F, to, I guess, encourage Belizeans. How would they be, I don't know, open to doing something like this? Because you're right. Kudos to you. You're not asking me Doyle's Delight. It's not for me.
It's not for the faint of heart.
It's not for the faint of heart. And I'm an archaeologist, and I've done rough terrain.
Wow.
That, no. But how do you encourage Belizeans to be a part of something so unique?
I think there is really the zeal to find these other places. The problem, I think, in the beginning, and in our programs here at Channel 5, we have always noted that in the past it was a dangerous zone. So people would not really want to go there. They were afraid of the Guatemalans under the jungle. But today it is more secure. So I would hope that in the near future these areas can be much more accessible. I think that those areas, you know, once the people really start to learn about these places, to be able to provide that opportunity, I think they would be really amazed. So it's really more like reaching out. We have not, over the years, we have always been speaking only about the problems in Chiquibul. We have not been talking so much about the beauty of the Chiquibul. So the beauty, like for example, the Natural Arch. People have always heard about the Natural Arch. You have to pass through the Natural Arch to go to the point of Doyle's. And that's another beautiful area to understand and to learn. So there's many of these other places. So I think that as we open that opportunity, I am pretty sure that people would want to go. But like what you mentioned also, it is not for everybody. But it is really a personal thing. If you start to exercise and do your physicals and your mental kind of preparing your mind, I think it is one of those things that you can basically tick it off. I mean, a lot of the people that we have met, like Viridiana and a group that came last year, the group last year, it was the first German lady to have climbed Mount Everest, who came last year. So a lot of the people that now are interested are basically to tick off the highest points. And Belize's one is this one, which is Doyle's. So I think though that providing that opportunity is going to make it. It is a nice one. I think you'll see a different part of Belize, a pristine environment, and it is safe now. In the past, it was not as such.
How can Belizeans become a part of this? Where can they go? I would imagine that it's not like a regular tour, right? So how can they be involved?
I mean, right now, it is not really as a tour that we do it. And in fact, Viridiana was able to join us as part of a recce that we're doing with rangers on the site. So that's the way how we basically do it. So it's not really open
yet.
Exactly, it's not open yet. But if you notice, if you go right now to Chiquibul, Chiquibul is changing. There's a paved road going way down to Caracol, a huge bridge is there right now. So people are going to start to understand more about, and to query, what is out there. So I think the time is coming. I think that, but we want to do it nice. I think we want to make it in terms of that wilderness adventure. We have the Chiquibul Caverns, which are the longest ones in Central America, which only a handful of people have been there too. Yeah. But I think those are kind of the richness, and I would hope that ultimately is going to educate the people why Chiquibul is so important. Apart from the water resources, but these are the unique features that we have out there.
Beautiful. Well, Mr. Raf, thank you so much for joining us. Viridiana, congratulations.
Thank you.
And it's a very inspirational doing that climb. If anybody else would like to do that climb, Isani, I challenge you if you want to do that
the
climb.
park is beautiful.
The park is absolutely
beautiful. And the work
beautiful.
that FCD is doing, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So.
Indeed. So congratulations to you both on this venture. We are going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we will be switching gears to counting down to Belize's King of the Pitch. We'll be right back.
Carlton Flowers, and I'm the owner of Back to My Roots Art from the Heart, and in this store I produce a lot of handmade ornaments. Before I had access, it was a big problem because the tourist doesn't carry as much cash. We needed to have the machine to make the business a success. Dealing with the machine, I don't have to take time out from the store to go and or send people to go to the bank. I would recommend Belize Bank Digital Service because it has done a lot for me personally. It has done a lot for my business. It helps me with paying my bills online, and I really appreciate that the staff took time out and teach me what I needed to get done. So I'm very happy that now I can do it confidently on my own.
In our world that's always changing, one thing stays the same.
Our promise as Smart Belize to keep you connected.
Connected to the moments, the people, and the future that matter most.
With every new tower, our service upgrades, and every new smile, we're keeping our promise in building more than a network.
We're building a future, a family as Smart Belize. From Punta Gorda to Corazza, we are here not just as a network, but as your partner in progress.
We have grown significantly over the past 20 years, and we just keep growing. Thank you for placing your trust in us. We remain dedicated to providing meaningful connections that bring value in every way that matters to you. We continue to bring people together.
My name is Christian Palma. I'm the owner of CRK Services, and I've been operating this business for 7 years in Big Falls, Toledo District. I use the Belize Bank online services because it's quite fast, reliable, and easy. Before I started to use the Belize Bank online services, I had to make a lot of trips into town, which cost me a lot, especially fuel. So the fact that I have to use my credit card every day, I can do an online instant payment and make my life easy. My customers can do payments towards me and it reaches in instant. It's fast, it's convenient for my business. I don't have to be up and down. I can do it anywhere I want. I would recommend you using the Belize Bank online services because for you, it will save you a lot of time.
Electricity powers our lives, but it must be handled safely and correctly. That is why it is not only important, but essential to be a licensed wireman. Being licensed means you are trained, tested, and trusted to do the job according to acceptable industry standards. To become a licensed wireman, the first step is to take the PUC Wireman License Exam, which is the only path to becoming officially recognized to carry out electrical installation and submission of electrical design plans to the PUC. PUC's Wireman License Exam provides evidence that the applicant possesses the necessary knowledge and expertise to be licensed in a specific profession or for a specific scope of work, assures the public that the person passing the exam is qualified to practice within the scope of the license without causing electrical safety concerns to the public. All individuals who have successfully passed the exam are issued a PUC Wireman license according to their category. The PUC reminds the public, 1. Only a licensed wireman can submit your electrical design for approval. And 2. Choose a licensed wireman to ensure your electrical project is safe and up to standard.
Welcome back. We are here with our final conversation, and it's all about the King of the Pitch tournament. Joining me is the founder of the King of the Pitch, and this is Philip Golson III. Relation to Philip Golson, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my grandfather.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here with
Thanks
us.
for having me.
Before we get started, the King of the Pitch is the football tournament. Yes. What inspired you to begin such a tournament? I mean, we already have FIFA and all of these different football federations in Belize.
Yeah, it was a few things, right? So, having been, obviously you could tell, I grew up between New York City and Belize, and you know, coming out here as a kid, I saw that, you know, one of the things that people talked about was opportunity. And you know, I feel like there's a ton of talent here in the country, just so much talent, and throughout the Caribbean. And so, you know, as I was here, the idea kind of came, like, we need to showcase this talent. It's a little challenging sometimes to put together like a whole team of talented people and make the game entertaining, so to speak. And so why not just pluck the most talented people and have them go 1v1 and let them show their skills. And so far, we did the
Yeah, go ahead.
We did the first one last year, it went really well. It blew up on social media, 5 million impressions throughout the Caribbean. And so we're back to do the second one, so King of the Pitch too.
Okay. Why football? What is this love for football?
Well, for one, you know, it's the most popular sport in the world.
It is.
Number one, but it's also the most popular sport here in Belize. And I feel like, you know, even when I was here, you know, my younger years, you know, the kids grew up wanting to play football.
There's a football field in like every village.
There's a football field in every village, right?
Okay.
And you know, one of the reasons why it's one of the most popular sports is because it has the lowest barrier to entry, right? Like, just need grass and a ball. Really.
That's true. Yes.
And that's it. And I love that about it, right? It's not about money or any of those things. It's just about desire and grit, right? And the will to play and have fun.
How do you sponsor a particular tournament like this? Do you have associates and stakeholders?
Stakeholder.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so it's completely self-funded.
Okay.
You know, I'm blessed. Thank God. Obviously, through God, all things are possible, of course. But yeah, I'm in a position to finance it, and so, you know, and look, the other thing is this, right? There's a ton of things going on in the world, right? I mean, you guys discussed, right? We might be looking at the Third World War. You know, there's the immigration issues. And then even here in Belize, we see the teachers, we see the other unions. You know, people need something to aspire to look forward to, and the kids need an opportunity, and not just the kids, but even some of the more grown folks who've been practicing playing their whole life, right? They need an opportunity to get on the world stage, and that's what we present. As I mentioned, over 5 million impressions is nothing small, and that's just Belize. So. Yeah. The eyes of the Caribbean and the broader world are on Belize for football.
So what are you looking to do differently this year?
Well, for this event, so the first one, we just wanted to prove concept, right, and make sure that we could actually do it. And that's what you see, the video that you see playing now. And that went amazing, right? We had some amazing talent come out, and it was just an exciting event. And so we said, all right, for King of the Pitch 2, we're going to invite the Belize community to come out and watch this and see how amazing the talent is that we have here and showcase that.
So what do the teams have to do exactly? How do you get to be part of King of the Pitch?
Yeah, so right now it's folks are specially selected. We have a team here. Shout out Kersha, shout out Kojak. Kersha is a part of the Football Federation, and so she literally knows all of the top players in the country.
Right.
And so she's been able to help with kind of choosing who we can pull in. I think in the future when we do other events, we'll probably open it up to the public and maybe do some sort of voting or something like that. But for right now, we want to make sure that we pull in, you know, the best of the best, essentially, so we can put the best product out there for Belize.
It's entertainment as well,
Absolutely,
right?
It's entertainment.
So when and where and how, like you said, Belizeans are now going to be welcome to watch? How?
Yeah, so the next event is July 12th, and it'll be at Marion Jones Stadium. And so tickets are on sale starting Wednesday, and we're starting at $10. So, you know,
$10 overall, like just like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
$10. And you know, as I said, this is to give back. This is for, you know, as I said, for the community. This is for the kids. We're also going to have, like, you know, kind of the princes of the pitch beforehand. So come out and watch those kids play as well, because it's going to mean a lot for them. But the production piece is going to be amazing. We have a stage, we have a DJ. This isn't like football where you sit in the stands and kind of watch. Like, you're on the field, right? Yeah, you're on the field. There's a DJ playing. It's a party. It's like party meets football. It's going to be amazing.
It sounds like it would be a lot more interactive for the audience.
100%. 100%.
Okay, and it's all day?
No. So we'll kick off around 5:30, and should be over roughly 9:30.
And how can we purchase tickets? Where can we find them?
Perfect. So I don't know the phone number offhand, but the video that's playing is going to have it. So contact Kersha, 613-8474.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to get our tickets, and
get
of
your
course,
tickets.
you'd like Belizeans from across the country to come and watch.
Everyone's welcome. Everyone's welcome. And we're going to be doing giveaways as well. We have these crazy jerseys. I'll be revealing those on our Instagram. So follow us at King of the Pitch, not the THE, but DA.
King of the Pitch.
Yeah. And that's going crazy as well. Over 1 million impressions in the last 30 days. So we're really blessed.
Wonderful. Well, Phil, thank you so much for
Thank you,
talking to us about King of the Pitch. As always, we want something else to look forward to, like you rightfully mentioned. We want good news in the world. And so what a wonderful and great opportunity for the Belizean public. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you to all of our other guests as well that tuned in and had the conversation with us. And of course, thank you to our viewers, because without you, this would not be possible. It is June 23rd. And if it is your birthday today, happy birthday to you. And if you have a birthday shout out or just a question or a comment, you can drop us a line right here at OYE at channel5belize.com. You can also catch us on our Facebook live stream at Open Your Eyes BZ, our highlights on Instagram at OYE Belize. You can also text us at our OYE number at 675-2555. And of course, please join us again tomorrow when you open your eyes to start your morning right. Be sure to keep your eyes, your minds, and your hearts open. Have a wonderful rest of the day, Belize. Bye.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank, our country, your bank, and Smart, bringing people together.